Locke continues the trend of War of the Visions giving out powerful handout units during collabs. Seriously, he is that strong, and if you're not building him, then you better have a good reason why, because Locke can power up your account in every single type of content that War of the Visions has to offer. Alright, it's time to talk pros and cons of building Locke, and I've also put some chapters in the video bar below so you can navigate to whatever part of the video you are interested in. So let's start with the pros. Locke is a very mobile evasion unit. You can see that he can go up to 4 move with his passive, and he has an innate 3 jump, which is pretty interesting. We had Dragoons with 4 jump, we've had Rangers and Pugilists with 2 jump, but this is a innate 3 jump, and that's kind of a good thing and could be a bad thing. It depends, because he could really get away from your team on a given map, but it also means that he can access parts of the map and get close to people, which is really important because his range is not that high. So the fact that he can hop ledges, like he doesn't need a range height skill, because he can jump those ranges himself and be able to get to wherever he needs to go. He's also one of the most evasive units in the entire game. He ranks right up there with Zazan UR and Shadow Lynx, so he'll be even more evasive than Elena is, which is pretty cool. And one of the cool things about his evasion buff that he uses in battle is that it's also a 40% attack buff, and that's going to be massive considering he has one of the highest attacks in the game. When Gumi was designing Locke, they decided to just jam a bunch of utility into his kit, and it's pretty incredible. He's got barrier breaks, AP breaks, he can dispel, he can re-raise and auto restore for himself. He's even got some status effects, and then his LB has slash and peril, which is pretty important because he doesn't have innate slash resistance penetration, but he also has strike damage on sub, and that's pretty impactful in terms of getting around a really high slash resistance. And we have another evasion unit just like that, that's 2B. So if you have 2B, you can kind of have an idea of how much that strike actually helps her out. If you use it, then you know it's going to be very similar with Locke. He also has the best counter in the entire game, my most hated counter in the entire game, and that's reflex. Now, I do have a con section, and people have said in the past, you know, Mysidia, you don't have to actually give a unit cons if they don't have any, and I don't think that Locke has any massive cons to him, but there are some things you should keep in mind. So for instance, he doesn't have any slash penetration on his kit, he just has an imperil on his LB, and once he's used that, it's gone. He can't use it on another target. He couldn't use it in a second fight in guild battle. He also has very low range skills. His LB is his longest range skill at 4, which isn't, you know, super short range, but it's also not very long range either. And so that's something that you have to keep in mind as well. His mobility does solve that a bit. Locke is also weak to magic, and that means that Garvel and Helena are both going to be effective against him. They both have 100% hit attacks. They're going to have that innate strength of dark versus light. Now, of course, Locke's going to have just as good a chance to kill them. Garvel, a little bit less because he has that physical barrier that Locke could break. But at the end of the day, Locke does have that weakness. When you look at someone like Elena, they can build spirit, she can build magic resistance and some other things a little bit more easily, some dark resistance on her passives that Locke can't. So I think that there is going to be a little bit of an in for Dark to be able to pick off some Locks in some compositions. Now, I mentioned this briefly before, but mobility can take away a unit from your team really quickly, and this is going to be mostly a pro for him because it's good to have mobility and to be able to navigate the map, but it is something that if you don't plan around it, if you're not someone that tests AI and figures out every map how your units are going to move, then this could be a con for you. So just keep that in mind, but it's not, again, there's not any huge cons for Locke. He's a very, very strong unit. I've decided to compare Locke to Zazan UR and 2B because they're all evasive physical attackers. Now with Locke, you get a bunch of utility compared to your competition. 2B does match it a little bit. She's got some great team buffs and some debuffs, but Zazan is, his main deal for Zazan is that he's going to be a tank buster. He's still going to be the king of that because he has some really high penetrations and some VC support, plus his triple split attack. But Locke is just going to be able to do a lot of things for not only himself, but against your opponents, and a few team buffs as well. So for example, Locke's main evasion buff is also a 40% attack buff, and you tap that on with his 591 attack, and all of a sudden you've got one of the highest attack units, evasion units in the game right now. Now, he's also going to be really great against non-mirror evade matchups, specifically because of his double accuracy passives. Now, you probably won't put all of Locke's accuracy passives on at once. I have him there with his 25% passive, so you can see he goes up to 199% compared to the Zazan and 2B being around like 173, 179. So Locke is going to be a really accurate evade unit, and that can be really cool if you're taking on Wind Evade, if you're taking on Dark Evade, if you're taking on Earth Evade. Locke will have a better chance of hitting in those matchups. Locke also benefits from being an amazing element, and 2B also has that claim, but I think Light takes the cake in terms of support for evasion units and just support for units in general. So that's another leg up that Locke has over these other units. I think that sub VCs are really going to come in at a good time here for Locke, I mean at his release, because they're going to help him stay evasive, but also give him some things like slash resistance penetration that he definitely wants to have on his kit. I have a few closing thoughts slash miscellaneous information to share with you about Locke, and it's mostly on the PVE side. So he has Drain Rush on his Nightblade sub, and this is a fantastic chaining skill for both PvE and PvP. In live PvP, you can use it to really take down a unit with a following unit's turn. Locke is also just going to be a raid staple because of that Drain Rush, but also because of his LB with the Imperil, but he also has a TP skill on his main sub job, so you can't use that and Drain Rush, that can inflict slow and CT down. That's also going to be key in manual PvE. Things like Trial of Reckonings, if you're going for a high score, it's going to be very useful. Light Slash is just going to be a very effective PvE team. Now, Locke can also support your team. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. He can raise single target resistance, missile resistance, pierce resistance. So there's ways that you can use him to support your team and keep him near your team so he doesn't go running off and just fight 1v3. So he does have some options in that realm as well, and it really just helps him become a complete unit that is honestly, it's crazy that we get him for free. It's time for the verdict. Should you build Locke? Yes! Unless you have a clear target that you need to save for, Locke is just going to make your account better. Light accounts can safely build him, but he'll be great for any account. If you don't even have light units yet, if you're new, or maybe you just don't build light very often, great. This is your first step into it. So Locke is going to work with your rainbow teams, he's going to work with your other element teams, but he's going to be just a fantastic access point into light as an element if you don't have light already. If he is not a priority for you, but you are building other Final Fantasy VI units, consider slow building him in the barracks. Your other FF6 units can build Mind Spheres for him once they're level 99 in the barracks as well. So you might be wondering, am I going to build Locke? Because I've talked so highly about him. Well, not right away. My plan is to slow build him in the barracks, like completely. I'm not going to spend a single Visior on him. I want to save for whatever the global original unit that's coming next. Now, this is a long collab, so if I don't go for the global unit once I see what it is, or maybe I'm super lucky and I have a bunch of extra Visior, then I might also try to get Locke closer to 99, so the slow build takes a little bit less time, because once I get him into the barracks, with my Terra that will be in the barracks, I'll be able to build up those Final Fantasy VI Mind Spheres very quickly. Now, one thing on that note for the slow build is that one of his most important skills is his job level 25 skill. It's an auto refresh and also re-raise, so that is pretty impactful. If you are planning on using him competitively, you have to build him right away. You can't slow build them, but if you have patience, then it's totally worth saving your Visior. He's going to be good for a very long time. Well, that's going to be it for this video, and you know what I'm going to ask you next. It's to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Comment down below what you think about Locke, if you agree with me, etc., because all that stuff's going to help me out. It's going to help with the algorithm, and I really appreciate it. So we'll see you all in the next video.